Joining us now on the Newsmaker Hotline is our good friend Stuart Varney. Stuart, how are you this morning?
Brian, I'm well, and I hope you are too.
Well, we are, but you know what? I can't recall. You've been around this business for a long time. Can you recall a news cycle like the one we're in right now? Bombings in Boston and chaos over what really is going on there. We're still uncertain about it. You had a ricin scare in the Senate. You got gun legislation being considered in the Senate. You've got this massive explosion overnight in a little chemical plant, a fertilizer plant near Waco, Texas, that is just truly almost biblical in its proportions. And amid all that, we got the stock market up and down and up and down. What in the world is going on in the world of finance?
Well, you're right. I mean, it seems like chaos, doesn't it? But if I just address the issue of finance for a second, you're right. It has been up and then down, 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 and that's the story of the day. I'm prepared to say that the price of gold crashed earlier this week. It lost 10%. That is a crash. And that affects far more people than you might imagine, Brian, because an enormous number of Americans have bought these gold coins for their children and grandchildren. And odds are they have coins which are not worth what the parents and grandparents paid for them. So a lot of people affected by the gold crash. Then you've got the stock market falling out of bed because, quite simply, all this money printing doesn't seem to be working anymore, and the world is slowing down despite all this money printing, and you've got a stock market that really plunged this week and has shown no real signs of major recovery. You're right. It's chaos across the board in the news cycle this week. Well,
is there any reason to be concerned financially with what we've seen in the last few days, or is this just sort of minor correction?
No, I think there is reason to be concerned. Wow. Look, we're printing $1 trillion a year in America, more than that in Japan. The Europeans are into it as well, and yet we have declining economies all over the world, from China to Japan to Europe, and now the United States. We thought we were looking towards a solid rate of growth this year. Now those hopes have been dashed. Retail sales are actually down. The jobs numbers were awful. You've got this combination of factors here which suggest printing money doesn't work, world economy is slowing down, profits are not that good, and the stock market starts to fall. That's, it's very worrying for a lot of people.
Stuart, you're harsh in my mellow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's all right. You're not there to give us happy talk. You're here to give us
straight news.
Exactly. Right. Listen, I want to ask you about something that happened. It was remarkable yesterday in a Senate hearing. Senator Baucus, who was one of the architects of the Obamacare legislation, he was speaking to Health and Human Services Secretary Sebelius and said that he is afraid that there's a train wreck coming with regard to Obamacare. Now, we've all been talking about this train wreck from the day it got pushed through, but now suddenly the guy who helped write that train wreck is worried about the train wreck. How bad is this going to be?
I think it's really bad. I'll say flat out that the implementation of Obamacare is not looking good. I draw your attention to the guy who runs the technology for setting up these health insurance exchanges. His name is Gary Cohen. He addressed a meeting recently in which he said he's very nervous. He thinks we might be in for a third world experience when it comes to signing up for these exchanges. Now, that's serious stuff.
Yeah.
I've lived in third world countries. You don't want that over here when you're dealing with your own healthcare situation. So I agree with the good senator. It really does look like we've got a train wreck coming here. In fact, on a broader scale, it looks like much of the president's basic agenda is falling to pieces. Didn't get what he wanted on guns. Immigration is really rather watered down, if you ask me. And then here comes Obamacare, and as Senator Baucus said, it's a train wreck. It's a disaster in its implementation. Things that just seem to be falling apart, in my opinion.
But isn't the concern that if it is a train wreck, that's just going to lead – this is what we've always worried about. Obamacare didn't work. What we really need is a single-payer system like Canada and the UK, and this will be their excuse that we tried to do it with the private health exchanges. It won't work. Time for single-payer.
I can see that coming. Yeah, I can see that argument. But the chaos when we try to implement this system and we can't. By the way, those exchanges are supposed to be set up and running on October the 1st, and that's 6 months away, less than. and it's not going to happen. So what worries me is the chaos that we're looking at in 1/6 of the American economy. That's very troubling. Granted, when we get that chaos, you will hear these arguments to say, yeah, we need a single payer, we need a British National Health Service. That's in the future. What worries me is the chaos that's right on our doorstep now.
Well, you're just a little ray of sunshine this morning, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll have a nice day.
Hey, before you go, though, I mean, look, with all this stuff that's going on in the world right now, and I'm referring specifically to, the really, tragic thing that happened in Boston, the ricin, and now we're dealing with this thing in near Waco. We don't really know whether it was just an industrial accident or something more. That's under investigation at this hour. How do those kinds of chaotic events in the news cycle impact the world of finance?
That's an interesting question, Brian. Let me give you a timeline from yesterday. Right about 10:20 Eastern Time yesterday morning, the Dow Jones average was down approximately 120 points. It was down. Then came the news on ricin, specifically that President Obama had been sent a letter containing ricin. At that point, the Dow Industrial Average dropped 160 points, down to a 160-point loss. In other words, ricin, that development on the terror front, if I can put it like that, had an immediate impact on the stock market. That's because we don't know. We lack firm knowledge. What happened, why it happened, could it happen again?
And the markets don't like uncertainty.
Precisely.
Yeah.
If you're a big-time trader and you hear something that's got nothing to do with the financial world develop outside of finance, your first instinct is to sell. It's never to buy. It's always to sell.
Well, Stuart Varney, it's always great to have you right here on the Mornings on the Mall.
After today, I'm not sure you really believe it.
No,
I really
please don't leave us.
Pleasure.
We want you to come join us every morning.